So let's start off. What is a CDLP?
A CDLP is a certified divorce lending professional.
Uh-huh.
So, a CDLP is someone who has taken additional training, has some in depth background in regards to the nuances that exist between the family law community and the courts
Mhm.
and real estate and finance. That they really have to have in depth knowledge when it comes to things such as maybe tax laws, lending policies that are different during divorce, things of that nature.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up because when I started dealing a little bit more with families that are going through this process, I thought that it was all the same. I thought that someone that's going through the divorce process is basically the same thing as somebody who's looking to buy a house, but there are many differences that happen through this process. And unless you know these differences, then um, you could run into a lot of hiccups. So can you tell us about some of the differences in
Sure.
the process of a family that's going through a divorce if they're looking to accomplish one of these items?
So I would, for about the last 7 years, this has been a passion of mine to get involved with the family law community, really to
Uh-huh.
hope change the community to understand that getting a consult, a finance consult from an expert, a CDLP, as early on in the process of their divorce is crucial. It's crucial to the success of their ability to perhaps do an equity buyout if that
Yeah.
is something that they want to negotiate, or even setting them up to ensure that if they decide to sell the property, that they are prepared to purchase post divorce. So
Mhm.
some of the hiccups that we see frequently, just a few examples to give you, is um, not meeting the 636 rule. So the 636 rule essentially is when we have child support income or alimony income that might be needed to qualify someone for either a refinance or a purchase. And what 636 means is that in order to use that income for qualifying from an underwriting standpoint, we need evidence that the party has been receiving the income for 6 months,
Mhm.
and we need evidence that it's going to continue for 36 months. So that's where the 636 comes into play. Some of the hiccups that happen in family law is that we might see cases where both parties have negotiated that in lieu of, let's say, the husband or wife paying support during the negotiations, that the party will make the mortgage payment in lieu of paying support. So that right there is a huge no-no. And I try to educate family law attorneys, judges, etc., of how that can have someone and really delay their ability to be able to refi or buy. So making the mortgage payment in lieu of support is something you definitely don't want to do. So again, getting in front of someone as early on to help maybe structure that settlement, and making sure that the way the orders are written do not conflict with lending guidelines. Um, Another issue that we see frequently would be alimony or child support with the upcoming change in law. So I don't know if you're aware of that, that there are some significant impacts that are happening in January 2019. Are you aware of those?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So an example of that and how that is switching is right now the way the law is that when someone pays alimony, that is considered taxable income. They get to write it off. Okay. So the person receiving has to pay taxes on that, and the
Uh-huh.
person paying gets to write it off as a deduction. So come January, that flips to where the person who is paying it no longer gets that write off. So that impacts them on both sides from qualifying. So the person who is paying it, it's no longer something that we can write off from their income. It now has to be included as an actual debt,
Mhm.
which impacts their debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
On the flip side, it's helpful to the person who's receiving it because they no longer have to claim that as earnings. So it becomes what? Non taxable earnings. And we would be allowed to gross that up, similar to what you can do sometimes for Social Security or pension, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So just imagine a case where maybe we were not brought in early on and they are counting on that for qualifying purposes, and they're not, familiar with the change in law and how that impacts lending.
Or not only that, but the divorce is a long process. So sometimes the process will get started in April, and there's certain lending laws that apply or certain regulations that are there at that moment. And now come December, something's going to change. So if a judge drafts an order, or an attorney and another attorney agree on an order with certain stipulations, then it could throw off the whole thing. So this is why I believe that it's really important for people to have information and people to talk to somebody like you that can guide them and say, hey, look, right now this works, but
it might not later.